Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Network 27. I'm Vice Mayor and Alderman Walter Burnett. I want to thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank everyone who helped me to put the show together. As you know, Network 27, we've been doing this for about 29 years, 28 years. I appreciate everybody who's been helping us to inform the community about things that's going on in the neighborhood, in the city, the state, and the county. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have some special guests here today, and they have a unique project that they're trying to do, something that a lot of people have an interest in the city for over years. It's been talked about, but these guys are set on making it happen. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us John Greuling, the director of the I-90 Coalition, Marc Poulos, the director of Local 150, and also Marcus Jordan, who's the director of outreach and inclusion with Local 150. Local 150 is an organization that does heavy equipment. They have equipment operators, and they can tell you what they do later. But John, first of all, introduce yourself, tell people about yourself.
Sure. Name's John Greuling. I'm a career economic developer, very passionate about creating jobs, new investment, but especially infrastructure. And so it's become sort of a habit of mine to get involved in major infrastructure projects, and the 290 Blue Line corridor is really what we're here to tell you about, and hopefully your listeners and watchers.
Yeah, so just in case someone that's watching don't know what infrastructure is,
Sure.
What is infrastructure?
Well, it's pretty much everything that we rely on every day. It's the sidewalks you walk on, the metro line you come into the city on, you're driving your truck on the highway, water and sewer, just about everything, the pipes and wires and rails and concrete that make this world go around. And sometimes infrastructure is ready to go. It's invested, doing very well over a period of time. It breaks down, gets worn out, and you end up with a situation like we have with the Eisenhower and the Blue Line. We've got 65 years of age and needs total replacement. So. And it's not easy to fix things once you kind of forget about them for a while. It gets more expensive to take care of this particular issue. So we're excited about making this happen.
Yeah, something dangerous could happen. And first thing I think about is that bridge that just fell down.
Right.
That's what makes infrastructure so important.
Well, and the last thing we want is to have a crisis drive the funding of this project, even though that may, in some cases, be the best way to get funding. We went through that with the I-80 coalition, where we had a bridge over the Des Plaines River that was very questionable. But once it was brought to light, there was a lot of political momentum about making sure that road got rebuilt. We see a similar need and an issue here. And this road and the CTA line, when it was built in the late 50s, it really split communities up, as you know. And this is more than just rebuilding a road and a rail line. It's really focusing on reconnecting these communities.
Okay, so let's get back.
Yeah.
Because I got you wound up already, man.
Yeah. Sorry. Doesn't take much. That's what I do.
So, Marc, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having us today, Alderman. Marc Poulos, I'm Executive Director of Local 150's Labor Management Group, the Indiana, Illinois, Iowa Foundation for Fair Contracting. I do most of the kind of sort of politics around Local 150 as well, do the legislative work down at Springfield, at City Hall. A lot of what John talked about, I've been around there for just over 20 years now. So I've been involved in a 2009 capital bill under Governor Pat Quinn when he was first governor, and then again in 2019 under Governor Pritzker. I was kind of sort of charged with leading the charge for a new capital bill. It seems to happen kind of sort of every decade in this state for some reason, but the last one was a big one. We did the single largest capital bill, Rebuild Illinois Capital Bill. It was a $45 billion capital bill, but as you're going to hear today, this project we're highlighting today, this I-290 Blue Line Coalition, it's a nearly $6 billion project. So imagine, out of a $45 billion capital bill, you say, well, let's allocate $6 billion to one project. It's just not going to happen. So part of my job is to make sure that there's work out there. So for operating engineers, Local 150, the men and women that do the heavy equipment operation, albeit they do cranes and those types of things for vertical buildings, but the bread and butter for them is roads and bridges. And this project's got an awful lot of roads and bridges in that $6 billion package. So our job is to kind of sort of look out to the future, figure out what the infrastructure needs are, and then go out there and get the funding to get these projects moving so that folks aren't sitting on the bench. People have jobs. And when we get people jobs, we try to make sure it's the right people that are getting them. So, Marcus Jordan to my left is in charge of making sure that happens.
So Marcus, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you all for having me. So my name is Marcus Jordan. I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator for the Indiana, Illinois, Iowa Foundation for Fair Contracting, as well as the Operating Engineers Local 150. So for me, it is my job to make sure that all communities have access to this work that we're trying to develop. All right, so those bridges that we're talking about, those roads, getting into those union positions to make sure that you're able to make a living off of that. All right, you're talking about an economic base that can literally change lives, take people from lower income to upper middle class in less than 2 years. So it's educating the community, it's creating access for the community, and then making sure that the community is at the table as these conversations are being developed, so that way it's not just a last minute response.
People in society, when they hear about unions, they always hear all these numbers, Local 150, Local 1, Local this, Local that. What is Local 150?
Local 150 is the operating engineers. So their focus is heavy equipment. But the thing is, their span vast is through all different industries. So you can learn how to run cranes to build the buildings. You can learn how to run a paver that actually paves the roads. You can do sewer and water development. So everything infrastructure 150 is going to touch in some capacity. They even represent the men and women in municipalities as well. So, you're talking about front-facing community, front-facing with the community to have these conversations. You're seeing the individuals that's plowing your roads, that's fixing the pipes that you drink in your house for water. So that's 150. They're the union that represent those men and women.
And Marcus was a former Local 150 operating engineer who worked for a municipality. That's where we picked him up from. And I'll say too, Alderman, so Local 150's jurisdiction, operating engineers, Local 150, that local, second largest operating engineer local in the country. So there's a number of locals in all different states. Illinois is unique in that we've got about 8 operating engineer locals that operate throughout the state of Illinois. Most states like Wisconsin have 1. Most places like Minnesota have 1. Illinois is broken up into different geographic jurisdictions. Local 150 only covers the northern 25 counties in Illinois, 7 northwest counties in Iowa, 14 northwest counties over in Indiana. So it's a big jurisdiction made up of now about 25,000 members. So it's growing. In 1986, there was about 8,000 members. So unlike many labor organizations that have been on the decline, we're on the incline. So we've been growing nearly 3 times in size since 86 to 2024, and we're not stopping.
Fantastic. So what I hear is that Local 150 is like the highest paid, one of the highest paid unions in the industry.
They're all high paying. They're union jobs, right? These are careers, not jobs, right? These are $55 plus an hour jobs.
$55 plus an hour.
These are time and a half over 8 hours in a day. These are time and a half on a Saturday. These are double time on a Sunday, double time on a holiday. These are high paid careers.
You can walk away making $200,000 a year, huh?
Yeah, well, man hours are dependent, right? Most people in the industry, if they're working heavy highway, a project like the I-290 project, right, they're working somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,500 hours instead of, your normal 2080 or, depends. Some people get lucky and they're working an awful lot of overtime depending on what that project is. But, these jobs are 6-figure jobs now. Fully paid health care, pension, retirement medical savings plans that takes you through retirement for medical between the time you retire and the time you can get Medicare. They've got annuities and other 401k things that supplement pensions now, so that when people retire, there's actually a living. You don't have to live off of Social Security. That supplements your income as well. So yeah, these are highly trained, highly skilled individuals that when they go through our apprenticeship, they actually spend more hours in our apprenticeship than you do in a 4-year degree, bachelor's degree from the University of Illinois. That's the type of training you get. So these are real life careers.
And it's continual education, right? It doesn't stop. So even once you're in after 4 years, you can go back, and once the industry shifts, you can say, you know what, I want to go from heavy highway to water, right? Water and sewer. You have that option at any given time, and it's all free.
So Marc, as you go around, and I've seen you at many events, trying to tell young people about how to get involved, especially African Americans and minorities in the community. And what's the qualifications to become a operating engineer?
So the minor qualifications is just 18 years old, driver's license, and a $25 money order to get the application. And then from there, you can work with me, and we're going to build you out completely. So whether we're utilizing community organizations, that non-for-profits that have what we call pre-apprenticeship programs, to leveraging funding to make sure that we can hit those barrier reductions, right? I mean, especially within the city of Chicago, we all ride public transportation. Construction industry, you need transportation outside of public transportation. So we might need to use those barrier reduction funds to get you from point A to point B until we get you to where you need to purchase your own car.
Fantastic. So you try to help them so they can have an opportunity to get there.
Yep.
Right.
With no excuses.
Okay. So fantastic. So we can talk all day about how to get involved with your union, because these are great jobs. But if people wanted to get involved with your union, what would they do? Who would they call?
So you can email me. You can call me. You can call the Union Hall, the one for the Chicago Cook area. The address is 6200 Joliet Road. I actually do not have the number, but you can call me directly at 224-214-7546. Email address is mjordan@local150.org, and then we can sit there and work with you directly and our team to make sure that you get access.
Fantastic. Good deal. Good deal. So now let's talk about the I-90 coalition. Who wants to roll with that? What is the I-90 coalition?
So I'll open it up, and I'll turn it over to John for kind of sort of an overview of the project. But what we saw was Rebuild Illinois Capital Bill passes and goes into effect in 2019. It's unlike many capital bills that have been a 10-year capital bill. This is really a 5 or 6 year capital bill. The Department of Transportation does what's called a 6-year MYP. It's a multi-year plan. So they come up with how they're going to program out all these dollars, where they're going to spend it on, what projects they're going to spend it on. And what we saw was, I-290 really wasn't a focus. Right, this I-80, as John alluded to before, I-80 corridor was one of those projects that they were going to highlight. There was some stuff downstate. Tollway was in a massive $11 billion rebuild. If you take any trip out to I-294 or anywhere else, right, there's cranes and equipment and workers and everything rebuilding the entire tollway system. But we looked and said, we've got to get serious about this I-290 corridor, and one of the reasons people haven't gotten serious is because it's sticker shock. I mean, when you look at a project, it's a 13-mile corridor, so it's not all that large, right? It's a 13-mile corridor with a roughly $6 billion price tag, and situated and sandwiched between neighborhoods where the right-of-way is kind of the right-of-way, right? And you've got, communities and other folks that would be adamantly opposed to, expanding right-of-ways and that type of stuff. So, but if you've ever driven in the recent past I-290, I mean, it's kind of a crapshoot, right? You may get on it and come in from the suburbs. By the time you get to 294, you could be in downtown in 15, 20 minutes. There's also days where I leave about 2 hours, right? Now, maybe I'm down here a bit early, but you got to leave 2 hours because it could be an absolute disaster back and forth. The blue line itself, the CTA blue line itself, is in the same type of condition, right? Both the stations and the infrastructure, the tracks and all that, they're just not made for high-speed movement of people in and out of the city on the blue line there. So with that all said, A couple years ago, we looked at this and said, geez, we've got to get kind of the band back together, right? The band back together that we worked on the Rebuild Illinois Capital Bill and the I-80 corridor. And so in any event, we talked to John and talked to, some of the mayors up and down the corridor. At the time, former Mayor Lightfoot, now Mayor Johnson, talked to some aldermanic folks, talked to some congressional folks, and said, we have a very much interest in taking the lead on an I-290 Blue Line coalition. We're going to form an actual formidable organization that's got a website, that's got a leader, that's got somebody that could put together meetings. So in any event, that was the impetus to this a couple years ago, and we held our first press conference at the Uber headquarters right off of 290 at the old post office, and we had for the first time, you've got the Speaker of the House, you've got the Senate President, and you got the mayor of the city of Chicago, all who live or have districts that touch this corridor, right? And it's powerful. So we had people from the mayor's office, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House standing there saying, we need to act. We need to do something on this corridor. And that was kind of the kickoff, right? When you had that kind of power, and then of course calls into the governor's office, gets support from the governor's office as well, which we've had, and then branching that out to the congressional folks and federal funding and all that. So I'll stop there. It was at that point that we looked at it from Local 150's perspective and said, there does become a time where we kind of got to turn this over to the next, right, to a coalition, and then the coalition at some point's got to turn it over as well to a CMAP, which is the Regional Planning Organization, and the IDOT, the Department of Transportation, and the City of Chicago, and CTA. Like at some point, those are the organizations, right, that ultimately put in the grant applications at the federal government. They've got grant applications in at the state and at DCEO, looking for regional and other types of local funding through the city of Chicago and then up and down the corridor. So that's the point where we, got John on board with us to kind of sort of lead the organization and treat it as a full-time job, right? I mean, Marcus and I have hundreds of different things depending on the day that come up that we're going and doing, but this is John's focus. So John's been doing this for the last couple of years, and I'll turn it over to John to kind of sort of talk about the 290 Blue Line Coalition and the project itself.
Yeah, so why don't you do that, John, and tell us where you started at.
Sure. Appreciate the opportunity, Vice Mayor. Really, this is a great thing, and I as we've talked to you before, we're looking for champions on this project, and obviously we're hopefully can count on you for that as well. So this project is very complex. We've got two pieces of infrastructure: the Blue Line and then the Eisenhower Expressway, I-290. Again, built in the late 50s. I found out that the Blue Line was actually built first, and then the Eisenhower was built sort of as a companion project. But going back to the early last century, the Congress Expressway was designed as a gateway, if you will, to the western Chicago area all the way out to the suburbs. And it was celebrated as almost like a European thoroughfare with grand designs, etc. And it was built not maybe as grand and voluminous as some people wanted, but it was built. And as I said earlier, there's not been a lot of reinvestment in this corridor. We recently learned that Chicago now is number 2 in traffic congestion in the country. Wow. I think a good part of that has to do with the congestion we see on this stretch of highway.
Who's number 1?
New York City.
New York.
Yeah, and they're trying to fix it by tolling people as they come into the city center.
I was just there, I can attest. Yeah, boy, New York.
I'm surprised LA isn't.
It's not. It used to be.
Used to be.
Really?
But you look at the investments in public-private partnerships in places like Southern California, but also in Texas. They're finding new ways to fund some of these projects, and I think some of that innovation needs to be applied on this project. But as you've heard, we've got broken infrastructure. All you have to do is drive it. This piece of road has never been totally rebuilt down to Mother Earth.
So exactly when you say the piece of road and you say I-290, yeah. So let's give people a description of it. Where does it go from?
Well,
where is it actually?
It basically starts right west of the Jane Byrne. And then goes all the way out to Manheim, basically to 294.
If you've ever driven in the city, the old post office, right, you drive through it, right? The old post office, right? That's the 290 corridor, right? That's this western access out to, the western suburbs that gets you out to Westchester and the 294 corridor, and then even further out west, if you continue on out to Schaumburg and Naperville and right out to all those places. So as John said, the 13-mile stretch that this project encompasses is really I-294, which is the tollway system, which is, if people remember, it was called the Hillside Strangler, right? And then we fixed the Hillside Strangler by like moving it a mile, right? So we didn't really fix it, we just moved it. If you've ever driven it.
Strangle you later, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we used to strangle you
right
here.
away.
Yeah, just wait for it. You're gonna run out of breath before you get there. But yeah, it's that 294 tollway stretch, which right now has cranes and all kinds of construction going on there. And then if you've ever been on 294 trying to get to 290, that's yet another disaster that's now being fixed through the tollway system, right? That you always used to kind of sort of get off the highway on this kind of sort of exit. And then you'd sit, right? And then everybody who couldn't sit and wait, they'd get off in the left lane and they'd go as fast as they could to get in front of the truck, right, before they got off on 290 to get into the city. But it's that 13-mile stretch that goes from Jane Byrne or just west of the old post office all the way out to 294. So it's like I said before, like you can make it in and out of the city, right? If you move in at 55 miles an hour, it's a mile a minute. In 15 minutes, you can run that stretch, and quite honestly, that's what you should be able to do. And there's some days. Last night, I came from the city late last night on 290, and I ran that corridor in 15 minutes. That's how it should be, right? Yet this morning, didn't quite make it through that 290 corridor in 15 minutes at 7:15 in the morning, right? It was more like an hour and 30 minutes to get from the western suburbs to get into the city of Chicago. That's just not reasonable, right? People can't. If you can't depend on what that corridor is going to take you, and you now start allocating 2 hours of your day to get from the western suburbs to the city and 2 hours to get back home, it's 4 hours out of a day. So, part of this is getting people to return to the offices, getting people to return to the city of Chicago's post-pandemic. A lot of that is public transportation. A lot of those conversations are happening right now about the fiscal cliff and public transportation on the CTA and Metro and Pace bus service and the like. But we've got to fix these corridors too. I mean, 55 is not much better, right? We've got to reconstruct that at some point. We got some plans for that too. We worked on 2 years ago that we continue to work on. But this particular corridor, as John was starting to talk about, is a little more complex because it's got these divided neighborhoods, which began in the 1950s, and it's got this massive mass transit CTA Blue Line. It's got the I-290 corridor, and then add to it, you've now got this massive medical district that services, and then you've got UIC that it services, and you got right. I mean, there are some major things that impact the city. Yeah. There you go, United Center, right? Like major things that are impacted by this corridor that. Boy, if we could fix that piece of infrastructure or those pieces of infrastructure, I mean, the sky's the limit for that corridor.
Yeah, the delegates coming here in August are probably going to get a taste of our infrastructure woes coming in and out of the city from that point. And the other problem here is in terms of purpose and need, the Blue Line. If you can't rely on your car, maybe you can take the L, get on the CTA. 70% of that route operates in what they call a slow zone, and then they've been closing stations, not fixing them and opening them. 7 of the 11 stations that are still left, Vice Mayor, do not meet ADA minimum requirements. So even if you would want to ride the CTA as opposed to driving in, you don't really have a good alternative. You can't park and ride. You have to literally find a way to get to the end of the line somehow. Park your car and then try and get in. But the time it takes to get in from the Des Plaines work area is not much better than driving on some days. So we're dealing with IDOT, CTA, the City of Chicago, to some degree Cook County, and then CMAP, the Regional Planning Agency. And the coalition decided that, the first thing we need to do is to create a unified vision for this project. And you know, the environmental impact statement for the Eisenhower was completed in 2017, and the vision of the future for the CTA Blue Line was also completed in 2017. Fast forward 7 years, nothing virtually has happened. Some work has been done, but for the most part, the massive project is in front of us. So we decided, we do need this coalition to be an advocate for this project. It's a place where mayors and elected officials, community-based organizations, transportation fanatics, road builders, engineering firms, the operating engineers, etc., can coalesce and meet and really represent a force, if you will. Advocacy is a big part of the coalition, and sometimes that translates into arm twisting and lobbying. Because that's the way some things get done, that's the way some things get funded. So the coalition will be a resource, if you will, for the communities. And to some degree, kind of a gadfly to IDOT and the CTA. 6.2, 6.3 billion and rising. And so one of the things we encouraged the regional planning organization, as well as the CTA and IDOT and the other stakeholders here, let's get our act together. Let's create an entity that will help us create this vision and go after some of this money. And CMAP really picked up the gauntlet on that. And recently, there was an agreement that was executed between CMAP, the Regional Planning Agency, CTA, IDOT, to create basically an overall project management office for this entire project. They're calling it the Corridor Development Office. This is the first time that this approach to this project has been taken. And it provides a platform, if you will, for CTA, IDOT, and CMAP to take a look at, okay, what's the design engineering requirements for this project? And then secondly, what's the financing plan to get this done? Over the last year, we've had the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Transit Administrator, the Federal Highway Administrator, the Rebuild America Administrator, and they've all met with IDOT, CTA, CMAP, and the coalition, and basically said, you guys got a great project here. You just need to get coordinated and collaborative. And that's why we think the coalition can really move this cheese, if you will, on this project. So as a result of these discussions, CMAP put together this agreement that was executed by CTA, by IDOT, and by CMAP that says we will work together on a common vision to seek the funding and actually get this road and this rail rebuilt. The very first thing that's happened as a result, and maybe not entirely of the push from IDOT, CMAP, and CTA and the coalition, but the IDOT's most recent 5-year, 6-year, multi-year funding plan has included almost $1 billion of new money to this project. It's the first time we've seen this kind of a commitment from IDOT. So you look back at 2017, the environmental impact statement was done. There was an agreed upon plan on how the Eisenhower should be reconstructed. Essentially, over the next 7 years, a trickle of funding has come to serve this project. Now we have an opportunity. It's not necessarily money in the bank, but there is a planning and a multi-year commitment from IDOT to put almost $1 billion into this project. That's the kind of leverage we need to get other funding. The federal money we can match with the Rebuild Illinois money. We need to look at other sources, though, and I think that involves conversations with the tollway, looking at other innovative ways of rebuilding this corridor in a cost-effective way. And we're excited. We think that over the next 8 to 10 years, we're not only going to get this infrastructure rebuilt, we're going to create somewhere between 12 and 14,000 new construction jobs. And so
12 to 14,000?
That's what the projection is.
12 to 14,000?
$6 billion project.
Yeah. And
over how many years?
8 to 10 years. And
That's great.
so the individuals that Marcus is working with, they're going to say, okay, I want to become an operating engineer, but where's my work? And we certainly have an opportunity here right in front of everybody that even if it takes you 2 or 3 years to go through your apprenticeship and get your certifications, you're still going to have a big project to work on, hopefully in your backyard, so to speak. And we think that's one of the advantages of a project like this. It's not on the middle of a prairie someplace in central Illinois. This is a living, breathing organ, if you will, serving this very dense area, in an area that's suffered from disinvestment. And that's the other benefit to this project. We're going to see new money come in, not just for the infrastructure. You rebuild a road, add a number of correctly built and accessible CTA stations. Private industry is going to come in and say, this is a place where I want to put my business and grow my business because my workers can get here. And that's a very important part of this project.
Yeah, and I'll say too that albeit this is such a big project that they're not short-term construction jobs, they're long-term, right? It's a 10-year project roughly. But the long-term impact of the jobs along that corridor is exponential. There's been discussions about how this whole design happens and whether there's portions of that you actually cap, so you can actually connect communities. But take the medical district, for example. I mean, there's places in the world that are doing infrastructure projects right now where they're running a cap over, but not just a cap, they're running a cap where you can then actually build buildings on the cap on top of the highway. So think about the medical district. I mean, it's the property is what it is there, right? It's finite, right? There's only so many places. I mean, you can see the overhangs and cantilevers on the Rush Hospital system that it's like they're trying to, take up every square inch of space that they can. I mean, imagine a world where you could cap that and then put additional buildings and put some type of tax increment financing district or some other type of district there where, now it becomes real. And I'll say too about the jobs and the construction jobs. Hope Academy, which is a high school along the I-290 corridor, makes up 50 wards, so individuals that are at that high school make up all 50 wards of the city of Chicago. Large Hispanic population, largest population is African American students at that school. Local 150 operating engineers, laborers, and electricians have partnered over the last 2 years with that school. That we have a trade component now in that school. And the agreement is if you go through the trade components in your 4-year track through the high school, you graduate and get direct entry into one of the apprenticeship programs of your choosing. That's never happened before, right? When you look back 30, 40 years ago at Washburn and other models that were out there that were like building trades driven in that, there was never a commitment that there was a automatic direct entry into these programs. This is the first time, right? And we're hoping that we're going to expand on this Hope Academy concept. I go back to the pre-Obama days with Arnie Duncan when he was in Chicago. I mean, I remember sitting down at a table with him nearly 20 years ago having this conversation about let's bring trades back to the CPS schools, let's get the trades in there, let's make a commitment, let's put together a curriculum, let's get direct entry for their students, and then, President Obama plucked Arnie and took him off to D.C. and that kind of sort of died on the vine. And right, there was a lot of you had new leadership and all these things, and that kind of went by the wayside. And quite honestly, we worked on different models and different things in the state to try to make that happen. And then more recently, Hope Academy was ready, willing, and able to partner with us. So that's a big program that Marcus works on as well. IBEW works on it with us, IBEW 134, and laborers as well. So the hope is that over the next 4 years, we actually get graduates from that wind up in the apprenticeship program and are working on the very corridor that they were educated on, right? And they that'd be pretty cool.
Hope is a great school.
It is.
Yeah. Bob Mazakowski.
Yeah, Mazakowski, you got it. Yep.
Yeah, how's he doing?
Yeah, great. Yeah,
he's doing good.
Yeah,
so tell me this. I know
that.
that's a big campus.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter how big the campus is for you all to be able to do what you're doing in there?
We've had to expand. We've had to. We've got about $600,000 or $700,000 construction project going on. There's some renovations of the gym and redoing some stuff there so that we get trade curriculum fully implemented over there. The real vision. So during COVID, We were not partnered with Hope at the time.
And I know we on a tangent. I know he's focused on other thing, but go ahead.
It's all part of it. It's all part of it, right? It's all part of it. You can't. There's no world where you go build the I-290 corridor, and the people that are building the corridor don't look like the corridor. That's a thing of the past, right? Like, and if it doesn't, you certainly need to lay out the plan that was executed to say this is the plan that was executed. Maybe we didn't achieve the goal we were trying to achieve, but we certainly tried pretty damn hard to get there, right? So at the very least, you need to be able to lay out the plan and see how you executed and then figure out how you failed, right? Or see how you laid out the plan, see how you executed, and see how you succeeded. The hope here is that we're doing some things differently than we've done in the past, so that when we execute the plan, it's successful, right? So that people that are working on those jobs that are career jobs, $55 an hour plus jobs, look like the very corridor, right? The makeup of that corridor that people are working on.
So for Hope to be able to do that with you all, is the cost all on you guys or is it on Hope?
So it's largely been on building trades, right? Building this out. So, we have a quarterly funding that we match in there. We worked on both state funding and our own private funding to build out the classrooms. The dream, I think, for Hope and the trades is, as you said, it's a big campus, right? I mean, some of these kids walk 10 or 15 minutes between the actual school and then the field house. So over by the field house, there's a lot of land. The dream is to build a brand new state-of-the-art $90 million, $100 million high school that expands right now it's something like 350 kids, but be able to expand that to 6, 7, 8, 9, 1,000 kids a year over there. And then the bigger piece of it, though, is to expand it beyond Hope. Right, not just have this one high school that makes up 50 words, right? To figure out how to then expand this to other, not just other areas of the city, but expand this to Rockford, Decatur, East St. Louis, right? Other places in the state that need this. Marcus does a fabulous job, but it's Marcus, right? Marcus can't be everywhere every day. Same thing with the carpenters, right? Same thing with the laborers. Same thing with the IBW. They can't be everywhere every day. So you need to build an apparatus that's operating outside of Marcus or myself or other building trades that's just pumping out kids. And when I say kids, these are 17, 18-year-old kids, that have literally learned since junior high, this is probably what I want to do with my life. It's a European model. I mean, they've done it in Germany and other places in the world successfully for a long time. We've gotten to the point now, Local 150's apprenticeship program for these kids, 38% of the kids that apply for the apprenticeship have 4-year college degrees. It's an unbelievable number. Wow. But these are kids that went to ISU, Northern, U of I, DePaul, right? All of these schools, and they've come back, they've gotten a job, and they're like, that's a job. I'm not making all that much money. I got all this college debt, right? Where's a place I can make more money? Apply for an apprenticeship program, making $55 an hour plus and have your health care paid for and have an actual pension and all those other things. So in any event, those are just some of the things that have kind of sort of born out of, this corridor as well, to figure out what are unique new experiences that we can put a plan together, try to execute the plan so that when we do get the funding, when we do have the environmental studies updated, when we do start putting shovels in the ground, we're prepared with the workforce.
So before we get back to the funding, I just wanted to go back. You all glossed over a cap in the I-290.
Sure.
And you were saying potentially capping it in certain areas. What areas are you thinking of? Of course, I'm always thinking about my ward, right? But that's just the alderman part of me.
This goes to the lobby. This goes to the lobby part that John was talking about earlier.
It's yet to be determined. The Village of Oak Park has some ambitious plans about decking.
About decking there. So that's like putting a cover over the expressway, right, going from one side of the street to one side of the expressway to the other, where people can walk on it or have grass on it or buildings.
Totally contiguous neighborhoods. You got it.
In some cases, you're connecting infrastructure on either side. Say a Garfield Park and then a footpath or a bike path that takes you to the south side of the road. But I think right now there's an opportunity, and we had the Build Back Bureau director in a couple of months ago, and he was talking about the big dig in Boston and how there's been development over that entire corridor. Even though a lot of it was pretty deep anyway, that was a part of the benefit of doing that project.
So what did they do in Boston? They built over the expressway?
Yeah.
And then they built on top of it?
In some cases there was buildings, in other cases it was greenway.
Green space?
Yeah, and in the case of Boston, they really needed some fresh air, so to speak. And I think some of that, it'd be a good mix here. The Eisenhower and the Blue Line are in a ditch. A lot of people drive it every day. They don't think about the fact that they're in a canyon and it floods. But the fact that the bridges, the overpasses, are basically horizontal to the ground on either side, it just begs for some sort of creative, innovative construction next to and over the interstate. And there's ways to pay for that. The federal government isn't necessarily going to write checks to pay for the expansion of the hospital over the Eisenhower, but they are willing to look at public-private investments, long-term loans, 30-year loans, 40-year loans, very low interest rate. They're pitching that right now. Vice Mayor, there is an urgency to this project. Marc mentioned earlier, we get a capital bill out of Springfield every 10 years or so. That's similar to what happens in Washington. In some cases, it's worse. But we have what's left of the Biden program. And there's another couple of years that if we don't get on, and by we, it's the coalition, it's CMAP, it's IDOT, it's CTA, City of Chicago. If we don't get on the application bus and start seeking funding from the feds that's available today, and we can match it with this money that the state already has in the bank, so to speak, we're going to miss a huge opportunity to get maybe another $1 billion or so to match the Illinois $1 billion. And that'll take us a long way for the next 3 or 4 years with this project. And I think the other thing that we've been talking a lot about, unions, coming from the business side of the equation, private sector investment, the quality of the work that's done in the major projects in Illinois and Chicago specifically is amazing. I've done this work in North Carolina and Georgia and Texas and California and Colorado. I can tell you the walls aren't all square in those communities where some of this building is going on. We've got tremendous quality in the caliber of the workforce here. And so, yeah, the expense feels high, but the bang for the buck is definitely there. And I think we can demonstrate with a project like this that it's not just public money. The coalition is committed to finding private investors to participate in this as well. Not necessarily building the road and the rail, but benefiting the communities with new investment. Otherwise, it's a wasted opportunity. And sometimes you hear IDOT and CTA say, we're going to fix all this and then we're going to be done. That's not enough. We really need to provide the opportunities to the folks that live along the corridor, the businesses that want to stay here, and the new businesses that might be able to move into here. We've got some great anchors here. We've got United Center, we've got a hospital district, the university. There's major employers up and down the corridor that are begging for a reason to stay here. And I think what we're doing, we can at least maybe enlighten them and encourage them to make that investment.
So what's first? So first you all started the coalition. You're in conversation with the state, the city, the county, CMAP, all of those folks who are part of the coalition, from what I understand. The state has put up $1 billion already. It's going to cost you about $6 billion, you said? Mm-hmm. Right? So then now you're trying to put in for grants from the federal government and other organizations in order to help make this happen. Everybody's on board with that? You all are doing that together?
Yes.
So this is a focused project that's happening with all of these government agencies and you moving in that direction.
That's right.
That's a very recent phenomenon, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, this is only with all of those parties signing an agreement together and then going out for an RFP for a corridor manager. right? I mean, quite honestly, over the last couple of years, our little coalition of some mayors and unions and that have been kind of sort of operating as the corridor manager, right? We'd say, oh, there's infra grants and mega grants and all these grants coming out. Hey, IDOT, we really need to be putting in for these grants. In the city of Chicago, you should be writing a letter in support. But we got to, CTA. What has happened, and what's quite honestly has happened around the country, when the bipartisan Biden infrastructure, $1.3 trillion infrastructure bill was passed, we used to have what were called earmarks. So prior to it was back in the Obama days and back in the Clinton days, right? You would go through and kind of sort of, congressional folks would mark up like, I want my I-80, Des Plaines River Bridge, and that's $1.2 billion, and I want my I-290 corridor, and that's $5.6 billion, right? Whatever the number, they would mark it up, and it would go into this big bill, and there's a lot of projects listed in this thing. That went away, a couple decades ago, and now we're in a situation where instead of doing earmarks, what they do is they do large swaths of grant money. So they keep big buckets. I mean,
so
hundreds. It's billions of dollars, literally in grants.
So they want you to be competitive.
Yep.
So what they want you to do is part of it's self-help. So if you're a state or your communities or you're a city that says, oh, I haven't raised my gas tax in 30 years and I don't want to raise my registration fees and I don't want to do innovative financing, I don't want to engage in P3s, like if that's a world you live in, the chances that you can actually go and meet any grant criteria or matching and everything else is almost non-existent. But in a state like Illinois, in a city like Chicago, where we've taken great strides to raise our investment in infrastructure, and we've got those dollars, we're like in one of the best positions in the country, yet for a couple of years, we've failed at delivering the federal dollars back to us. And one of the reasons why is because there wasn't this coordination. So now, once you put this corridor manager in place, now they can calendar out and say,
that's all they do.
October, we need a grant writer that's going to put in for infra.
We got to put it in now.
There you go. And so this is a very new phenomenon, right? That has not existed. That we feel very confident that as we move forward, that we are going to capture, especially like these mega grants, that capping and connecting communities. I mean, these are some of the basic tenets to those grants. I mean, that's what it says. If you don't have a project that's going to connect communities and have equity and hit all the marks, don't even submit your application. Yeah. This corridor has literally every single thing. It's like being a kid, and you come home from school and you're like, got this project, and the teacher gives you this like rubric of 10 things, and the kid, finishes the project and they show it to you and they're like, what do you think? And you're like going through the rubric and you're like, did you even look at the rubric? Did you get a pen and check off one of the 10 things that you even looked at? Because you're getting a 30% of this project right now, kid, right? Like, do you have a, do you have a body? Do you have a conclusion? Do you have an intro? Okay. Oh, okay. So add all right, check. And you get done and you go, did you check all 10? And they go, yeah. And they go, getting 100% on that. We're in that position in Illinois to get 100% on these grant applications. It just takes coordination to get there.
So tell me this. So you already have the governor, the mayor, the president, the CTA, all these folks on board. What can a community do to support this? Right? What is it that the community can do to help make sure this stays, on the table and keep moving?
Well, that's one of the reasons we created the coalition, to be an advocate, obviously, not just for the agencies that are building this project, but for the communities that are going to benefit from this. One of the things we learned in the I-80 project is, getting all the mayors up and down the corridor, getting some of the major employers up and down the corridor. These are things that the coalition is working on right now. And so if there's a community or a leader that wants to understand how do I best benefit from this massive project, I would suggest that, giving us a call and being part of the coalition would be a good first step, so to speak. Because our purpose will be to keep in communication with all the entities. And Marc mentioned the RFP is out for this corridor development operator. That's going to be let sometime later this summer or early fall. So we're going to have that coordinating mechanism in place, and we're going to hop right on that. I mean, the coalition is one of the boxes attached to influencing how this corridor Corridor Development Office operates. And if I can have some mayors and big business and small business and BIPOC businesses on my team, we're going to get a lot done.
And we've got a
convinced.
website too. It's i-290blueline.com.
Yeah.
So i-290blueline.com, right? All one word. You can send us a comment, right, on that website. Like if you've got a community, and we've met with a number of community groups and mayors along the corridor, but if you've got a community group or a mayor or a city council member or a, anybody, right, that wants to get involved, engaged, or wants us to come out and give a presentation, right, on this corridor, or if you've got ideas. I mean, the reality of it is, like, we're never the smartest folks that step in a room. There are a lot of smarter people out there, right, just people from a community, right, that say, I've lived here for 40 or 50 years. You know what you really need? And you go, wow, what a great idea, right? Never even thought about that. I will say, too, we've engaged the business community, so the civic committee, Tom Katarik over there and Derek, their president, we've had meetings with them. They've been assisting getting the business community kind of sort of wrapped around this as well. We've done a couple of different policy papers around this particular project, Illinois Economic Policy Institute, of which I sit on the board for. It's a nonprofit, bipartisan think tank, so they've done some work around this corridor, and just, I mean, the numbers are astronomical, right? Like economic benefit, not just to the city of Chicago, but to the state of Illinois generally, is huge on this thing. But yeah, i-290blueline.com, you can go to the comments, send us a message. We're happy to come out, happy to connect, and grow the coalition, quite honestly.
So I know that Senator Don Harmon had a meeting not too long ago where all of the elected officials whose area 290 go through. And we had a meeting talking about this. And I really didn't, at that time, to be honest with you, and I think I told you this, I really didn't know what they were talking about. I thought they were just talking about, we're going to redo the 290 and we need to get ready for jobs and, all that kind of stuff, like we usually do when they redoing something on 290. But this is a much bigger project, right? It's very huge. Talking about capping the Eisenhower, having a lot more space, bringing amenities to the community, helping property values go up in neighborhoods, and producing thousands of jobs. I mean, this is like amazing. This is going to be tremendous. So tell me this. So timeline. When do you think something first will happen? When do you think? I mean, you got $1 billion so far. You're putting in for more grants. You're trying to get more people engaged. When can people see a visual? Right? Because some people just like to see pictures, right?
Right. We're getting close. So a world-renowned architect, Jeannie Gang, who's done a lot of work at O'Hare and other places in and around Chicago, has been working with the Civic Committee and is engaging in this project to give a real vision to what this project should really look like. But it's also going to take a lot of community engagement, right? We can, you can have a world-renowned architect put it all on paper until somebody from the community looks at it and says, "Great idea, accept." Right? It's going to take that too. So this is going to be kind of sort of a listening tour in and throughout the corridor.
So when are we going to start doing the listening?
So we got to get the corridor manager. It's kind of like
once
I said.
You get the corridor manager.
Once you get, I mean, that's really the, so sometime this fall, right, we think we'll have a corridor manager in place. Then they can build a team out from there. It's like I said, Marcus is one person going throughout 50 wards in the city of Chicago, and quite honestly, he covers northern 25 counties in Illinois, 7 counties along the Mississippi River in Iowa, and 14 northwest counties in Indiana. So he could be in South Bend for a meeting this morning and wind up at the end of the day in Rock Island, Illinois, overnight, and then wind up in Iowa and back in Chicago the next day. That's really how his life works. What we need is not just a Marcus going out there, not just a me going out there, not just a John, right, the 3 of us. We need this corridor manager to build out a team that is community engagement, getting the PR, working with the architects on the stuff, working on the grant applications, working with IDOT on other funding through the MYP, working with the city of Chicago. What are opportunities for funding there regionally? I mean, we're having this, part of this that is just occurring now. I mean, we had the first Senate hearing on public transportation earlier this week. I think it was on Tuesday of this week. So it was the first of, I think, 6 or 7 Senate hearings, but there's a fiscal cliff of, I CMAP, $730 million, something like that. The real number is probably $1.5 billion, right? Just in operations that were short between RTA, CTA, Metra, and PACE. I mean, part of this corridor is the CTA Blue Line. Mm-hmm. So as we're having this conversation about what's the shortfall and what are we going to do, we've got to take that into consideration as, Springfield's considering, what are things we're going to do in order to fund public transportation. One of the things we haven't really talked about is one of the current project as it stands has a toll lane. None exists right now, right? 290 corridor runs free no matter what. I mean, one of the ways to fund part of this program is to have a managed lane, right? Like an inside one lane's tolled so that if you want to pay based on the time of day, based on how long you're going to drive it, right? You're going to pay a certain fee to get in and out within a certain amount of time. And the managed lanes are supposed to be, you run at least 45 miles an hour or faster at all times in a managed lane. Mm-hmm. So imagine that, right? You get that, but that's part of the funding for the overall project, right? That's another kind of sort of public-private partnership or engages the tollway in something like that, but that is something under consideration, or that's kind of sort of how it's planned, quite honestly, right now with the tollway as part of it as well.
There is, CTA got $111 million from the Reconnecting Communities Grant Program, federal money, to start rebuilding some of that line. The city of Chicago got a $2 million Reconnecting Communities grant to do some West Side community planning. And FHWA gave IDOT another $8 million to fix that drainage problem on the west side of the ditch.
All in addition to the $1 billion in the MYP for
That's
IDOT.
great.
These are another
it's falling in place.
Well, and again, the more we're in concert, in coordination, the increased likelihood of Washington funding a portion of this is going to improve. So we need to do this.
So who's our Washington contacts? Senators, congressmen?
You got it. Yep, exactly. Danny Davis, right, runs along, right? That's his district largely. You've got other congressional people with a real interest. Raja Krishnamurthy out to the west, right? Got a real interest in this 290 corridor coming in.
Yeah.
You've got Senator Durbin. You've got Congressman Kasten, right? Again, he's got the traffic coming in. So yeah, really all the congressional folks, the entire delegation, is important to this process to make sure that we can capture federal grant money.
So guys, I want to thank you all very much. Hour went real quick, right? But I hope you got all in that you want. I hope people can visualize what the possibilities are on redoing the Eisenhower, having caps over it. People can walk across to the other areas, beautification, thousands of jobs. How many jobs?
Well, construction alone, it's 12 to 14,000.
12 to 14,000 jobs. 8 years, approximately.
8 to 10, yeah.
8 to 10 years of work. This could really have an impact on the community, in a lot of different ways. Not only the community, but economic development for the city, the state, and the county. Because when those folks work, they spend money in our area, and it comes back into the coffers. So it's a win-win situation for everyone, and it would make traffic move a lot faster. Right, and also allow people to get on that blue line and get where they're going a lot quicker too. So probably will help CTA to make more money also. So this is a great thing. I'd like to thank you all very much. Give the people the website again.
I-290blueline.com.
All right, hopefully you got an area on there if they more interested or want to volunteer or have you all to come out and speak to people that they can get that off of the website. I appreciate you guys coming. I was very excited about this. I'm glad that everybody's on board. I want to thank the mayor, the governor, the congressmen, the senators, in the House and the Senate, and the representatives. Everyone, the county commissioners, we all been engaged with this. I want all the aldermen and the mayors and everyone and all these other trustees and all these other counties. I want to thank everyone for being involved. This is one of the things that we can all do together that's going to benefit everyone in every community along that corridor. So this is a great thing. The business people, the institutions, this is just a great thing for everyone. It's going to enhance everything for everyone in our community. So I want to thank John Greuling director of the I-290 Coalition, Marc, the director of Local 150, big boss over there, and Marcus Jordan, the Director of Outreach and Inclusion for Local 150. Appreciate it. Look forward to working with you all in the future. I'm excited about this. I want to start it tomorrow, man. Let's get it done. Let's do it now, right? Thank you all very much. And whatever I can do to help, that's why we have you here. We want to help.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching Network 27. I forgot to mention to you all, unfortunately, because of the Democratic Convention and all of the misnomers going on, we usually have our picnic in August. We had to postpone it because we didn't know what to expect. So what we're going to do is pass out school supplies in 4 locations on Saturday, August 17th. If you're watching this before August 17th, one is going to be Sewell Park, one is going to be Eckhart Park, one is going to be Kells Park, and the other one is going to be my office at 2404 West Chicago Avenue. You can call my office for more details at 312-432-1995. Also call my office about a bike giveaway that we're going to be doing with the bike race over in the Fulton Market area. We're going to be giving away about 100 bikes. Again, 312-432-1995. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching Network 27. I'm Vice Mayor and Alderman Walter Burnett. God bless you and see you next month. Thank you.